and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. A month has passed since President Lee Jae-myung took office in early June. We take a look at how the South Korean leader will likely shape his foreign and security policies throughout his term. As Seoul sees an extreme heat wave and tropical nights, most of Europe is also trapped under a heat dome. Temperatures reached over 40 degrees Celsius in countries including Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy. U.S. President Donald Trump has once again said that he is not thinking of extending the July 9 deadline for countries to negotiate trade deals with Washington, as countries including South Korea brace for a critical tariff hit. President Lee Jae-myung presided over a cabinet meeting on Tuesday. He urged officials to respect members of the National Assembly who have been elected by citizens, while also addressing issues related to people's livelihoods. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
국회는 국민으로부터 직접 권력을 위임받은 기관이어서 우리 국무위원들께서 국회에 가시면 그 직접 선출된 권력에 대해서 존중감을 가져주시면 좋겠어요. 국가의 기본적 질서에 관한 문제니까.
President Lee Jae-myung began Tuesday's cabinet meeting by noting that all power comes from the people and officials elected by the people come before those who were appointed. He pointed out that there seems to be a misunderstanding with Parliament and urged the cabinet to respect the assembly. Present at the meeting were some of the cabinet members from the former Yoon Suk-yeol administration. He went on to pay attention to the livelihoods of the people, particularly the vulnerable, with the nation in the middle of the summer rainy season.
이게 지금 혹서기가 또래하면 어쨌든 또 뭐 쪽방이니 뭐 이런 노인 취약계층들이 또 위기를 겪습니다. 또 각별히 관심 갖도록 잘 관리해 주시기 부탁드립니다.
He also turned to another matter affecting the lives of Koreans, real estate. He said the stock and financial markets have been recently normalized and began to serve as investment options other than the property market, pointing to a tendency in Korea where speculation in real estate often leads to housing market instability. Last week, the nation's financial watchdog announced strict measures to tighten household lending to curb soaring home prices in the capital. Discussions on Tuesday included how to use some of the land left fallow in the border area of Gyeonggi-do province following the relocation of the U.S. military sites to Pyeongtaek.
President Lee instructed the Defense Ministry to proactively review and report measures to deal with the issues regarding the land returned by the U.S. Forces Korea in northern Gyeonggi-do province.
Among the items endorsed at the cabinet meeting was an agreement to establish a free trade zone between South Korea and Ecuador aimed at expanding bilateral trade and investment. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And it's been 1 month since President Lee Jae-myung took office. It's still early days, but we zoom in on the course of his foreign affairs and security policies, which he has defined as pragmatic diplomacy. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young explains.
Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic diplomacy blends continuity and change, based on the deliberate calculation of national interest. His diplomatic debut came at the G7 summit in June, where he held 10 bilateral meetings with world leaders. After a 6-month leadership vacuum caused by former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law crisis, Lee's presence aimed to renew South Korea's standing as a vibrant democratic partner. Lee Jae-myung has also reaffirmed the Seoul-Washington alliance and future-oriented relations with Tokyo. His first phone calls were with Donald Trump and Shigeru Ishiba, followed by China's Xi Jinping, breaking the tradition of progressive leaders prioritizing Beijing over Tokyo. Lee's foreign policy also shows signs of recalibration. While maintaining key partnerships with democratic countries, the administration is diversifying cooperation and avoiding value-based alignment, seeking to engage with China and Russia where possible. On North Korea, Yi's approach has been focused on reducing tensions. In his first month, he suspended loudspeaker broadcasts and cracked down on cross-border leaflet campaigns, signalling a break from the tit-for-tat escalation seen in recent years. His cabinet nominations reflect this push for peace over alliance-based deterrence. Foreign Minister nominee Cho Yeon last week called for moving beyond the, quote, stereotype that diplomacy begins and ends with the United States, while stressing US-North Korea dialogue and building peace on the peninsula as core priorities. Unification Minister nominee Chung Dong-young could return to a role he held under the Roh Moo-young government. He helped organize the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit. Defense Minister nominee Ang Kyu-baek, set to become the first civilian to hold the post in more than 60 years, has stressed the need to build peace along the border. North Korea, along with trade and security, will likely top the agenda when Yi meets Donald Trump later this month. Their meeting will mark the first test of Yi's ability to navigate the alliance while asserting South Korea's national interest. The US will likely push for Seoul to cover more costs related to defense and possibly the deployment of US strategic assets in South Korea. Yi and Trump were originally expected to meet during the G7, but the meeting fell through as Trump left early amid conflict between Israel and Iran. Officials from both sides say a summit is being arranged in Washington, likely the week of July 21st. Osuyoung, Arirang News.
As the clock ticks down on a critical U.S. trade deadline, U.S. President Donald Trump is taking a hard stance, refusing to grant more time for countries under temporary tariff relief. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
With a suspension period on tariffs set to expire soon, U.S. President Donald Trump signaled that he has no plans to extend the deadline and that new trade penalties for some countries may soon take effect. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on Tuesday, he singled out Japan after taking to social media the day before to criticize Tokyo for refusing to import American rice despite facing a domestic shortage.
And so what I'm going to do is I'll write him a letter, say we thank you very much, and we know you can't do the kind of things that we need, and therefore you'll pay a 30%, 35%, or whatever the number is that we determine, because we also have a very big trade deficit with Japan.
On the other hand, he said a deal to reduce the 26% tariff rate for India to much less is on the table, after Indian officials extended a visit to the White House last week. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox News prior to the statement that the two countries are close to making a deal that lowers levies for both parties. India is one of 57 named countries targeted by country-specific mutual tariffs announced back in April, before they were pushed back for a 90-day negotiation period. During that period, Washington has pushed for talks focused on tariff rates, trade imbalances, and non-tariff barriers. Only the UK has been able to negotiate a limited trade deal with the Trump administration so far, accepting a 10% US tariff on certain items in exchange for special access to aircraft engines and British beef. Going forward, the Trump administration is reportedly planning meetings with its trade team to set tariff rates for individual countries as the July 9th deadline approaches. The U.S. director of the National Economic Council revealed on Monday that the U.S. president will review tariff plans for each country, while Bessent warned that tariffs could remain high for countries that do not cooperate. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Consumer prices in South Korea climbed back to the 2% range in June, marking the fastest pace in 5 months. According to the data released by Statistics Korea, consumer prices in June increased by 2.2% year-on-year. This was led by processed food prices jumping 4.6% for the sharpest increase since late 2023. Bread, coffee, and ham led the gains, while the price of ramen surged nearly 7%. Seafood prices also saw a notable climb, up 7.4%, with officials pointing to global warming and unstable marine conditions. Meanwhile, oil prices edged up 0.3%, reflecting geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. It's been a week since the conflict between Israel and Iran ended with a ceasefire brokered by the United States. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Baek Seung-hoon, researcher at the Institute of Middle East Studies. Professor Baek, thanks for joining us this morning.
Pleasure to be on Arirang News Center.
Good morning. So, will the peace agreement between Israel and Iran continue to hold and forever end this conflict between the two countries?
So the ceasefire has held for a week, but we should be very cautious in interpreting that it as a durable peace, because it remains structurally fragile with no formal monitoring mechanism and no legally binding terms. So what we see is more of a tactical pause, a breathing space for both sides, rather than a resolution of their core disputes. So Iran has refrained from direct retaliation so far, but it retains its option through proxies such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, and the PIJ in Hamas, and so on, and several Iraqi militia groups. So although it has weakened by the successful military operation of Israel, and Israel in turn has declared the mission of success, but remained on high alert along its northern and southern front. So the ceasefire is being preserved not through mutual trust, but through strategic calculation and interpretation, international pressure, particularly from actors like Qatar and European Union. So we have to watch and see how it goes and how it progresses.
Right. And U.S. President Donald Trump says American strikes obliterated Iran's nuclear sites, but it's still quite unclear how effective they actually were. What's your assessment on this? How far has Iran's nuclear program been set back?
So although Trump administration claims it has obliterated the Iran nuclear program, the ground reality is more complex. So the U.S. strikes certainly disrupted Iran's nuclear infrastructures, particularly above ground support system at Natanz and Isfahan, which were targeted for their uranium conversion and centrifuge housing capabilities. However, Iran's Fordo enrichment facility, located deep underground in Harden Mountain complex, appears to have escaped serious structural damage. Satellite imagery and the IAEA initial assessment show no radioactive liquid, suggesting that the core enrichment assets and nuclear material have been relocated in the advance, and Iran claims. So as a result, Iran's program has likely been delayed by months, not dismantled, as initial report of Ministry of Defense and CNN and New York Times, which later confirmed by the IAEA itself. So we, again, like it is different what have Trump administration have like claimed. So we have to see how, if the negotiation starts, we have to see how this will play out on the negotiation phase between Iran and United States.
Right, and you mentioned retaliation from Iran, and U.S. government agencies are now warning of increased Iranian cyber threats. Could Iran carry out further retaliation in response to the latest U.S. strikes?
Cyber retaliation is not just likely, it may already be on the way, because cyber warfare allows Iran to strike back asymmetrically below the threshold of the conventional war. So this approach aligns with Iran's long-standing doctrine of plausible deniability and layered deterrence. Iran has the capabilities as well. I mean, Iran has cultivated a network of cyber unit within their military forces, such as APT-34 and APT-35 unit, capable of targeting critical infrastructures across the West. We've seen prior attack on oil facility, water systems, and financial services in U.S., Israel, and Gulf states. So given that the recent U.S. strike challenges Iran's national security core, Tehran will feel compelled to respond in a way that avoids overt escalation. So like what you mentioned, cyber attack and asymmetry warfare already had begun. So and it will going to progress while the negotiation just kicks in.
I see. And Trump is set to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House next Monday. What's likely to be discussed there, and will the U.S. pressure Israel to reach a deal on Gaza like they did with Iran?
So probable discussion agendas will likely include continued U.S. logistic and intelligence support for Israel operation, and coordination on Iran's potential countermeasures such as cyber attack or proxy activities, reinforcement of joint missile defense program, particularly in anticipation of cross-border escalation, and the possibility of developing a regional deterrence architecture that involves key Gulf allies like UAE and Saudi Arabia. And Of course, the Gaza front will also be on the table. Trump has hinted at the possible ceasefire in Gaza, and Netanyahu will be pressured to clarify Israel's long-term objectives in Gaza Strip. So while Washington may now be cautious about authorizing new offensive operation, it remains committed to Israel's qualitative military edge and will likely reaffirm strategic guarantees, if not more overt support.
You see, and has the ceasefire between Israel and Iran opened the door to ending the war in Gaza?
I certainly hope so, but I believe we need to watch the situation a bit longer before drawing a firm conclusion. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran has created a rare moment of regional calm, but its effects on the Gaza conflict remain indirect and conditional. What it has done is reduce the immediate threat of a two-front escalation, giving Israel slightly more strategic breathing room. That in turn may increase its willingness to consider a negotiated exit strategy from Gaza, especially under pressure from allies like the United States and Egypt. And on the Iranian side, the de-escalation has sent a signal to regional actors, including Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, to limit overt hostilities, at least for now. However, the Gaza conflict is driven not only by the regional dynamics, but by deeply rooted internal political, humanitarian, and ideological factors. So while the Israel-Iran ceasefire hasn't directly opened the door to ending the Gaza war, it has unlocked a pathway, a new diplomatic space for major actors to push for ceasefire negotiation. But turning that into an actual agreement will require coordinated international mediation and tangible shift in conditions on the ground. So we have to also watch and how it goes in the near futures.
Right, we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, Professor Beck, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Pleasure is mine.
Europe is seeing dangerous temperatures amid a historic heat wave sweeping the region. Some areas have already reported the hottest June average temperatures, while experts say the heat wave could lead to an excess death of 4,500 in a 4-day span. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
It's only early July, but Europe is suffering from a record-breaking heat wave. A strong high-pressure system is trapping hot air from northern Africa, while higher temperatures on the Mediterranean Sea are reinforcing temperatures over land areas. Countries seeing the worst of the heat wave include France, Italy, and Spain, with temperatures surpassing 40 degrees Celsius. Central France reported temperatures as high as 41 degrees, while Spain's southwest region saw mercury readings reach 46 degrees on Saturday. The Portuguese city of Mora rose to 46.6 degrees on Sunday, marking the highest June temperature on record. Amid the heat wave in Europe, the World Health Organization issued a stern warning on Monday, calling for urgent action to prevent tens of thousands of unnecessary and preventable deaths. According to Marisol Garcias-Gonzalez, the technical advisor on climate change and health at the WHO, it's no longer a question of whether there will be a heat wave, but rather how many there will be this year and how long they'll last. Statistician Pierre Massolet from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine also warned that between June 30th and July 3rd, the heat wave could cause more than 4,500 excess deaths. He warned that countries likely to record the highest rates of excess deaths are Italy, Croatia, Slovenia, and Luxembourg, adding that the worst days will likely be Tuesday and Wednesday. And according to the World Meteorological Organization, intense heat waves may become the norm for Europe.
The frequency and intensity of extreme heat events is increasing in Europe, and by 2050, about half the European population may be exposed to high or very high risk of heat stress during summer.
The heat wave is also raising concerns that the Eiffel Tower may experience deformation of around 20 centimeters. According to French daily Le Parisien on Monday, The steel structure bends slightly from various angles throughout the day due to the movement of the sun. It added that while the intense heat wave may lead to a wider angle of deformation, the tower returns to shape when temperatures cool during nighttime. 이승재, Arirang News.
K-pop group BTS will return with a new album featuring all 7 members and begin a world tour next spring. The supergroup announced the news during a live broadcast on the K-pop fan community platform Weverse on Tuesday, adding that they'll start planning their comeback this month. BTS says the new album will be released next spring, along with a world tour to mark the group's return. All 7 members of the group have now completed their mandatory military service and have been discharged as of last month.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Thailand's Constitutional Court has suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra from office following a petition from 36 senators amid controversy over a leaked phone call. On Tuesday, Thailand's Constitutional Court voted 7-2 to suspend Paetongtarn pending a 15-day investigation into allegations of dishonesty and ethical misconduct related to a leaked June 15th call with Cambodian politician Hun Sen. In the conversation, Paetongtarn referred to Hun Sen as uncle and criticized a Thai military commander as an opponent. The Bumjai Thai party, Paetongtarn's key coalition partner, withdrew support after the leak, prompting renewed public protests demanding her resignation. The deputy prime minister has been appointed as the acting prime minister. While Paetongtarn transfers to the Culture Ministry from July 3rd, she is barred from exercising executive power during the proceedings. The National Anti-Corruption Commission is conducting a parallel investigation that could escalate to a Supreme Court case, potentially leading to a political ban if she's found guilty. In India, the death toll from an explosion at a pharmaceutical factory has risen to at least 36. The blast on Monday at Sigachi Industries factory in Telangana state occurred at the spray dryer unit of the plant, causing the structure to collapse while over 140 workers were inside. Rescue teams have retrieved 34 bodies from the rubble, and 2 others died later in hospital. More than 30 people suffered injuries and are being treated for burns. Officials said additional casualties cannot be ruled out until debris from the collapsed building is fully cleared. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, officially ceased independent operations on Tuesday, July 1st, after 64 years. Over 80% of its programs folded into the State Department under an America First reorganization plan. Meanwhile, a new study projects that these funding cuts could result in more than 14 million avoidable deaths globally by 2030, including children under 5. Between 2001 and 2021, USAID funded efforts prevented about 91 million deaths from diseases like HIV and malaria. While former Presidents Obama and Bush denounced the closure, Secretary of State Rubio said inefficiency has officially come to an end. Dubai hosted the first piloted test flight of Joby Aviation's fully electric air taxi on Monday, ahead of its official commercial launch in 2026. It's the first in-market series of flight tests following initial trials in California earlier this year and included vertical takeoff and precise landing sequences. The California-based company says its flagship aerial taxi can carry 1 pilot and 4 passengers, reach speeds up to 320 kilometers per hour, and fly approximately 160 kilometers per charge. This could reduce the trip from Dubai International Airport to Palm Jumeirah to 12 minutes, down from a 45-minute drive by car.
Following yesterday's significant temperatures, today is expected to be equally, if not more, intense in terms of heat across Korea. Heat wave advisories are active in most parts and warning remain in place for most of southern regions. And we're also having tropical nights as the temperatures stay above 25 degrees Celsius overnight, and Gangneung is enduring super tropical nights. And if you're visiting Korea around this time, make sure to have an umbrella that can keep you safe from rain and sunshine. This time of year, it can rain all of a sudden before sunny skies quickly return, and you can easily get one from a convenience store. And there is a chance of sudden afternoon rain in the capital area and Gangwon-do province. This afternoon, Seoul gets up to 32, Daegu and Gyeongju both hitting 36 degrees Celsius under sunnier skies there. Hot and muggy conditions are here to stay with no significant monsoon rain in the forecast, so please take good care of yourself.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.